Australia's carbon credit market will be overhauled after the government accepted recommendations from an independent review of the scheme. Joining us live now is Dr. Jennifer Rayner, Director of Advocacy within the Climate Council, a bit of a tongue twister. Thank you so much for joining us, Dr. Jennifer Rayner. We appreciate it. Firstly, can we get your reaction to the review and that the government will be accepting all recommendations?
It's really important that the carbon market in Australia has integrity, because these are the offsets that some big companies are using to account for their harmful pollution. So it's good that the recommendations are going to be actioned by the government for more transparency, for stronger governance, and also for changing how some of these carbon offsets are actually arrived at, because this scheme does need to have the greatest integrity possible. But the elephant in the room here is that buying offsets is at the moment, unfortunately, really the first and only thing that too many companies are doing about their harmful emissions. If Australia is going to tackle harmful climate change, we actually need emissions to go down. And that means companies changing how they operate, not just paying for offsets to keep polluting as usual.
Will we see companies changing how they operate in time as we hit towards our targets?
Having the policy settings in place to drive that change is really important, because I think what we've seen from businesses in the last few decades is that they really don't make these changes unless they're pushed by the community, by their customers, by their shareholders and by government. And so the community has been sending a really clear message. Australians want climate action and they want every part of our economy and our community to be pulling their weight. And so what we need to see now is a set of policies nationally, like reform of the safeguard mechanism, which will be coming up today, which can really drive big polluters to cut their emissions by changing how they operate.
Should we see the safeguard mechanisms be extended to small businesses as well?
The entities that are covered by the safeguard mechanism are Australia's 215 biggest polluters, and many of those are big fossil fuel companies, the multinationals like Chevron and Woodside and Santos. So if you're going to be driving down Australia's emissions really sharply this decade, we should be looking at the big guys first. We should be making sure that the biggest, most profitable companies are really pulling their weight in that effort. So getting the safeguard mechanism right is essential to make sure those big emitters do their weight, just like other smaller businesses are already looking at how they can change how they operate, just like households are looking at the changes they can make, and just like our energy sector has really been driving hard and fast towards zero emissions.
Okay. What difference do you expect establishing an independent body will make, which has been recommended in the review?
It's important that the governance of the carbon market in Australia is really robust and really transparent, because these carbon offsets are meant to account for amounts of harmful carbon pollution actually removed from our atmosphere. So if Australians or businesses can't have confidence that that's actually happening and that offsets that are being created and sold are genuine, then that's a real problem for how we're going to take action on climate in Australia. But at the end of the day, using offsets should only be a last resort. It should be for that little share of emissions that can't otherwise be avoided or abated. What we really need to see is companies making big changes to their technology or their processes or how they operate so that they can genuinely drive down emissions. And then the carbon offsets that the Chubb review has looked at can be for that little share at the end that they just can't remove or abate.
Dr. Jennifer Rayner, I also want to get your thoughts on reports the ozone layer is healing, this part of the ozone layer over Antarctica. Is it comforting?
I think what we're seeing with the ozone layer healing is a really fantastic lesson for climate action, because what we saw was countries around the world come together to say there's some really serious environmental harm happening here. We need to change what we're doing to fix it. And that was a set of actions that took place over a long period of time by countries acting together that fundamentally changed how they did things in order to fix a really serious environmental problem. That worked. And what that should say to us is that if we take action now to change how our businesses operate, how we get around, how we power ourselves, and countries work together on that, then we can also tackle harmful climate change. It's a really positive lesson for us all.
Dr. Jennifer Rayner, we have to leave it there. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.